I'm 36 years old. I've been married for 10 years to Regina, who is 31. We share a wonderful 7-year-old daughter named Daisy. Outwardly, ours seems like the perfect suburban family. Regina is a successful senior manager at a growing firm, and I work from home as a software developer. Life should feel idyllic, right? But several years ago, one night twisted everything I thought I knew about my wife and our marriage. The setup, a disliked habit. For as long as I've known Regina, she's been ambitious and driven. Her workplace can be high stress, but she thrives on it. She supervises projects, negotiates deals, and leads teams with unwavering confidence. The only part that ever bothered me was her method of unwinding with colleagues. They'd hit a local bar or someone's big house, downing way too many drinks to celebrate a project milestone. A few times a year, I'd get a call late at night. Andrew, can you pick me up? I'd find her barely able to stand, makeup smudged, reeking of liquor. I confronted her about this, and she'd apologize, claiming she was embarrassed and never wanted to repeat that spectacle. Yet it became somewhat of a cycle. She told me, I don't do this in front of you. I hate getting wasted near my family. I feel safer around colleagues. But from my perspective, it felt like she needed these nights to blow off steam. I was the one left scrubbing the aftermath. We still functioned well as a family. Daisy was healthy and happy. She loved school, painting pictures, and helping me code by pressing random keys on my laptop. Regina and I rarely fought about money or chores. Our intimacy was decent too. For the most part, I felt we had a strong bond, except for these partying incidents that left me uneasy and resentful. It was late December, at the end of the fiscal year, and Regina was finishing a major project. She mentioned, Andrew, my team wants to celebrate. We crushed our revenue goals, so they're throwing a big end-of-year blowout. You know how they get. I tensed. You realize how I feel about those parties, right? Regina nodded, sincere in her approach. Look, it's going to be the usual routine, but this time I'd like you to come. You've never even met half my colleagues. If you're there, maybe they won't push me so hard into doing shots. I sighed, glancing at Daisy playing in the living room. I'm not a fan of crowds or loud gatherings. You know that. Besides, it's your work thing. My presence might just make it awkward. She tried persuading me a bit more, but I remained firm. Eventually, she relented. Okay, fine, but promise me you won't worry. I'll be back by midnight, sober enough to function. I know how you feel about hauling me home again. I gave her a serious look. No more drunken fiascos, Regina. This is the last time I'm letting you go alone to one of these big parties without me. If you want to do it responsibly, and I won't be picking you up. Please take a ride share if you need it. I mean it. Her face softened. Understood. I'll behave. I promise. We shared a warm hug, and I tried to push down the anxiety. She kissed Daisy goodnight, then left around 7 o'clock p.m. The plan. Come home by midnight, safe and sound. The broken promise. Midnight came and went. I paced by the living room window, phone in hand. 12:30, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock a.m. Still no Regina. Calls went straight to voicemail. My fury and worry mounted in equal measure. Andrew, muttering to himself. She promised. She swore it wouldn't happen again. Where the hell is she? By 4 o'clock a.m., I was livid, imagining every worst-case scenario. An accident, an abduction, or something more sinister. Finally, at nearly 4:30, the doorbell rang. It wasn't her key in the lock, but a ring, as if she was too disoriented to remember her own house. I yanked open the door. There stood Regina, hair disheveled, lipstick smeared across her chin, and a half-empty bottle of whiskey clutched in her left hand. Her eyes wouldn't focus, and her stance wobbled precariously. Andrew, for the love of God. I should have been furious beyond measure, and I was, but something about her disoriented appearance and that silly bottle in her hand struck me as almost absurd. Despite myself, I let out a laugh, harsh, humorless, but unstoppable. I hadn't laughed like that in ages. She stared blankly, not even comprehending why I was laughing. Andrew, still laughing angrily, look at you, Regina. You promised me. Regina swayed, trying to speak but only slurred nonsense. I took a quick snapshot of her face with my phone. Maybe it was petty, but I wanted a record of this sight. Then I guided her to the bedroom, her arm draped over my shoulders. She kept muttering something incoherent about long day needed an unwind. Once in the bedroom, I set aside the whiskey bottle, now nearly empty. My hands shook with a mix of anger and adrenaline. I tried removing her boots, then her jeans, ready to put her in pajamas. That's when I noticed she wasn't wearing any underwear. Andrew, voice shaking, Regina, where the hell are your panties? She stared at me with glazed eyes. I forgot them somewhere. Andrew, nearly shouting, What do you mean you forgot them? Where could you have left them? She couldn't answer. Her head lolled to the side, lost in the blackout. My rage soared. I finished undressing her mechanically, placed a blanket over her, and snatched her purse and phone. She wasn't in any state to protest. I searched through her messages, photo gallery, social media. Nothing. Her purse contained only her wallet, keys, some receipts. No sign of a random phone number or a suspicious business card. If she'd done something, she'd covered her tracks. Exhausted and furious, I spent the rest of the night in the living room contemplating divorce. The morning after, when she finally woke, the sun was high. I stood in the doorway, arms folded, scowling. Andrew, we need to talk. She looked groggy, face pale, hair tangled. I feel awful. I'm so sorry. Andrew cut the apologies. Tell me about the missing underwear. Her eyes darted away, tears brimming. I must have spilled my drink or something. It got soaked, so I took them off in the bathroom. Then I guess I forgot them there. She paused, voice shaking. Andrew, I swear it's not what you think. It was humiliating. I realized in the stall they were damp with whiskey or God knows what. I just wanted them off. Andrew, skeptical. You expect me to believe that's all that happened. You didn't respond to calls. You came home hammered beyond reason and you lost your underwear. You want me to buy a random drink spill story. She lowered her head, tears spilling onto her cheeks. It's the truth. I can't prove it. I messed up, okay? I was hammered. I forgot to call you. I'm sorry. We argued for nearly an hour. She sat there in a t-shirt, hair unkempt, eyes red. Andrew, I love you and Daisy more than anything. It's just, I'd hate my job sometimes. The pressure is insane. I lose my mind when we close a deal. I get carried away. I'm not proud of it. Andrew, coldly. Here's my condition. If you want this marriage, you quit that job. I'm done watching you come home destroyed. Clearly, your entire workplace is a toxic cesspool. Her mouth fell open. Quit? But I've worked so hard to get where I am. I'm a senior manager. It's not that easy to just walk away. Andrew, fine. If it's not that easy, neither is me staying in this marriage. I'm giving you a month to decide your job or your family. Until then, I'm out. Without waiting, I grabbed a bag of clothes and left to stay at a friend's apartment across town. Daisy stayed with Regina. No sense in uprooting her from the house until I knew how this would play out. A tense separation. That month felt surreal. Regina called and texted, begging me to come home. She insisted she was done with heavy drinking, promising never to get wasted again. But she'd also told me I can't just quit. We're in the middle of a major contract. If I leave now, I'll throw away years of effort. Give me time. Andrew, over the phone. Time is exactly what I don't have. You forced my hand. Weeks passed. Whenever we talked about it, she doubled down. Andrew, leaving that company sets me back drastically. I'm the main breadwinner. And you know I love my position. I've achieved so much. I can't just throw that away. She swore up and down that she was done with big parties, but I was hardly reassured. My trust was shattered. The scenario with the missing underwear haunted me. Maybe her story was true, maybe not. Either way, I couldn't shake the suspicion that something far more shameful had occurred that night. A fragile return. Eventually, the month ended. Regina hadn't quit. She simply said, I'm sorry, but I can't leave my job. I love you, Andrew, and I love our family. I want to prove to you that I can handle this responsibly. No more partying like that. I promise. Please don't file for divorce. I was torn. She hadn't met my condition, which burned me. But I still loved her, and Daisy needed both parents. The knowledge that Regina might truly have just been a drunk fool rather than unfaithful stirred in me. Maybe her story was legit, and I'd been spinning worst-case scenarios in my mind. I moved back in, albeit with the tension thick as ice. Regina tried to be affectionate, cooking my favorite meals, reestablishing a bedtime routine with Daisy, and cutting down on after-hours work events, but it was also the end of the fiscal quarter. at her firm, so a new wave of reports and deal signings loomed. Andrew, one morning. So, you said no more late night parties, but next month is your year end review. That's usually a big occasion, right? She nodded. Yeah, but I'm done with letting it spiral out of control. I made a vow to you. Andrew, grim laugh. Right. You also vowed to come home by midnight last time. She looked wounded. I deserve that. But Andrew, please give me a chance to rebuild your trust. I didn't reply. The memory of her standing in the doorway, mascara streak, holding a whiskey bottle, minus her underwear, was etched in my mind. And the underwear never turned up at her office the next day. Someone apparently found them in a restroom and trashed them, or so she guessed. The mental image made me grimace. Her coworkers might even have discovered them. The whole thing was humiliating. Looking ahead, now we're in a fragile state of reconciliation. I haven't moved forward with divorce, but I've also not forgiven her fully. The next big milestone is the final quarterly report in her firm, yet another reason for them to celebrate if numbers look good. Part of me is dreading the possibility that she'll pull the same nonsense. Another part of me wants to see if her words actually mean something this time. Some nights I still brood over those missing panties. I can't help but laugh bitterly to myself at the mystery. Pantygate, I've half joked, but the sting behind it is real. I imagine some random janitor found them in a trash can or on the floor, rolling their eyes at the spectacle. It's a silly detail, but it symbolizes the breach of trust so starkly. Meanwhile, Regina stays polite and apologetic, tiptoeing around me to avoid reigniting my rage. I've told her plainly, one more fiasco, and I'm gone. She nodded, tearful but resolute, claiming that she'll prove she can handle her workplace environment without drowning in alcohol. Final thoughts. I'm not sure where we'll end up. Maybe Regina truly learned her lesson. Maybe she'll slip again. Our daughter Daisy remains blissfully unaware of the drama, and for her sake, I'd like to keep it that way. But I also wonder how many second chances one person can reasonably give. For now, the only thing certain is that our marriage, once stable, was rocked by a single drunken night that ended with missing underwear, unkept promises, and the gnawing question of what really happened. If Regina can hold firm to her vow, perhaps we can rebuild the trust. If not, I'm ready to walk away, no matter how many years we've been together. And to this day, we never did find those missing panties. At least we can both smirk at the absurdity of it when we're feeling less resentful. But behind the humor lies the deeper truth. Sometimes a seemingly small incident can reveal cracks in a relationship you never knew existed. And once those cracks appear, you can patch them. Yet the scars remain.